Heartbeat Alaska is made possible by the following. By Coca-Cola, serving Alaska quality soft drinks since 1937.
And by the Alaska Seafood Marketing Institute, educating consumers and promoting sales of Alaska seafood throughout the U.S. and in international markets.
Eagle Island, lest on his neighbor. There's a heartbeat, loud as thunder. There's a heartbeat coming up from deep down under. There's a heartbeat deep inside our mother. There's a heartbeat.
Hello, welcome to Heartbeat Alaska, Native News and Native Entertainment. Happy holidays, I'm Jeannie Green. If you're a first-time viewer, Heartbeat Alaska is a weekly Native News perspective program. We're aired across Canada, and people watch us in Russia, Alaska, Greenland, and the lower 48. We're so glad to have you with us. Hello, Stephanie Ann Chavez. She writes to me from San Jose, California, and watches Heartbeat Alaska from KCSM TV out of San Mateo, Channel 60. We're so glad to have you with us. On today's program, we travel to Bethel, Alaska for the Mink Festival, and then to Borough, Alaska for news from the North Slope Borough on an Elders Conference, all the way down to Mississippi for a report from Carl Butler. All that Native news plus much more, but first, here's Gary Fife with Native News across the nation.
This is Native News Across the Nation. I'm Gary Fife. The Navajo Nation has exercised its sovereign powers over its lands and is dealing with coming federal budget shortfalls by making smoking a more costly proposition on their lands. It's imposing a new tax on cigarettes and tobacco products, and that's on top of a new Arizona state tax. The tax is a result of the state's recent proposition which raised tobacco taxes considerably and a new state law which allows tribes to take the action. Tribal leaders estimate it could raise another $1.2 million, mainly from travelers along a nearby federal interstate highway. Tension over reservation gaming in Upper New York State this summer resulted in deep divisions and even death among tribes there. It also had state officials preparing an invasion plan of sorts to restore law and order. The Gannett News Service reported that New York Governor's office had circulated a warning order in July. It called for a number of state guard units and armored vehicles to assist state tax collectors that were headed for Mohawk, Seneca, and Onondaga Reservation lands. That order was rescinded a day later. The tensions came after a Supreme Court ruling said tribal enterprises on the lands were subject to state taxation. State officials feared armed conflict with tribal members who supported high-stakes gaming and opposed state powers there. There may be new hope for imprisoned Native activist Leonard Peltier. The Leonard Peltier Legal Defense Committee was hoping that Peltier might be getting an appeals court hearing sometime this past week, but no other information has been available on that subject. National Native News reported earlier this week that federal officials are considering the request. Peltier was convicted in the murders of 2 FBI officers in the 1970s and was sentenced to 2 life terms in federal prison. Native supporters and others have fought the convictions for years, saying that Peltier did not get a fair trial. 2 Native-related historical projects in Montana are getting financial boosts from a state bed tax. Montana's Tourism Infrastructure Investment Program, managed by the state's Tourism Promotion and Development Agency, is donating $20,000 to recover, restore, and protect an ancient pictograph site near Billings, Montana. The funds will also be used by the historic St. Mary's Mission of Stevensville, Montana. The money will be used to find out how best to remove mineral deposits on the ancient drawings and to develop a visitors information center at the mission. More Native information on tribes of the Northwest is available for computer users. The Native American Science Outreach Network at the University of Washington in Seattle has a new resource guide to tribes of Washington State. It includes sections such as a tribal community profile section with information on every tribe in Washington. That multimedia computer version includes pictures, sounds, and even movies. For more information, contact the Native American Science Outreach Network, Department of Chemistry, University of Washington at Seattle. And finally, an Albuquerque-based group, the American Indian Law Center, will be conducting a nationwide review of tribal legal services and courts. With funding from the Indian Tribal Justice Act, the Native Law Center will review tribal courts to determine how the funding shortfalls will affect them and how to deal with them in order to improve those systems. Their contract has begun and a final report is expected in September of the coming year. Since the American Indian Law Center is in the early stages of designing that review, they're still calling for ideas from the public. For more information, contact the the American Indian Law Center in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And as always, if you have news or information to share about your Native group, your tribe, or organization, please share it with us and put us on your mailing list. Our best wishes for the holidays. This is Native News Across the Nation. I'm Gary Fife.
Mama Kashka Namidakwe, Anubok Tambo, Leon Peltier, Ocheki on the Elk.
Great Spirit, grant me vision that I may not go wrong and find myself in prison of things I have not done. Teach me the secret that I might see. Fill my heart with compassion to love my enemy. Mother Earth will feed our hunger. Father Sky will love her well. Make me worthy of this vision that no human tongue could ever tell. The winds of life blowing for directions, the sacred waters flow to the sea. The eagle flies high as any mountain. Oh, Great Spirit, keep us free. Give me strength to learn a lesson. Make me wise to understand what it takes to walk in beauty as I learn to walk this sacred land. sea. The eagle flies high as any mountain. Oh, Great Spirit, keep us free. The winds of life blowing four directions. The sacred waters flow to the sea. The eagle flies high as any mountain. Oh, Great Spirit, keep us free. Oh, Great Spirit, keep us free. Oh, Great Spirit, keep us free. I pray to you, Great Spirit, please hear me.
Oh, Dakase. Oh, Hanajid. Oh.
They go fast and they're going fast. The biggest selection ever of new Polaris snowmobiles is now available at Alaska Power Sports, but you must shop early. Alaska Power Sports announces our Polaris Fund dividend program. Your first check counts for $1,100 on a new 96, and the remaining checks count as $1,000 each. Alaska Power Sports has the largest supply of Polaris parts in the state, and we ship COD to the bush every day. So call Alaska Power Sports at 1-800-478-0500. Alaska Power Sports is the largest Polaris dealer in the world. Alaska Power Sports means Polaris.
And now for news from the North Slope Borough. From Borough, Alaska, we're so glad to have you back on Heartbeat Alaska. Tina Corwin reports on an elders conference.
It was always a pleasure to see our elders and our youth come together to discuss issues of importance to them. Our elders have so much wisdom to give, and you young people have so much you can learn from them.
Residents from across the North Slope gathered in Borough recently for the annual Elders and Youth Conference. Repatriation of ancestral remains and burial items was the focus of the three-day meeting.
Repatriation means returning of the belongings of the native people, and that is the bones. It could be bones or the artifacts that were taken several years ago by the anthropologist or anybody that was dug up some graves and their artifacts with them.
Specialists in Native American repatriation spoke about their efforts on behalf of American Indian, Hawaiian, and Alaska Natives, and described the laws which have forced museums across the nation to return their collections.
The first law is called the National Museum of the American Indian Act, and it requires the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C. to repatriate human remains and funerary objects to Native people. The second law is the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, which is called NAGPRA. These are two brand new federal laws that give Native people the legal right to repatriate their deceased ancestors.
The United States, for example, has pursued the return of military personnel from overseas. For obvious reasons, families of these war dead have placed a high value on the need to bring their families back together and return their loved ones. However, all the while when this is going on, the skeletal remains, burial objects, and sacred objects of thousands of American Indians, Alaska Natives, and Native Hawaiians removed from their countries of origin continued to be kept in museums, other institutions, and even by private individuals. Removal of these Native ancestors often occurred without knowledge, or even when notified, against the wishes of living Native descendants. Such removals represent dark history, a dark chapter rather, in the history of the United States.
Among the topics discussed during the conference was the construction of the North Slope Cultural Center and proposed North Slope policy provisions on grave sites, remains, and objects.
We expect that the collections in the museums consist of tens of thousands of artifacts and thousands of human remains of our ancestors excavated by archaeologists from their graves, all in the name of science. The excavation of human remains and artifacts occurred after our living ancestors buried them. I hope that this doesn't sound too horrible for you as elders and youth to comprehend. I reviewed some catalog cards of objects that have been known to have been collected from our region. For instance, the Sheldon Jackson Museum had listed in their summary 480 items taken from the North Slope.
Students and staff from the Harold Kaviluk High School in Choctaw demonstrated a numeral system they developed to represent Inupiaq numbers.
The students at Choctaw fourth graders were the ones that took an effort to make symbols, to make math a lot easier for them. And it works. It works. Once they learn the symbols, they can count up to, even thousands and thousands.
For Heartbeat Alaska and the North Slope Borough, I'm Tina Corwin.
Thank you, Tina. It's so good to have you back with us. Let's travel all the way down to our good friends in the state of Mississippi. Carl Butler reports.
The Mississippi Band of Choctaw Indians are adding yet another manufacturing plant to their list of businesses and industries. The new plant, part of Choctaw Manufacturing Enterprise, which has been in operation at the Leake County Industrial Park since 1986, will include 45,000 square feet of additional manufacturing space.
We're here to dedicate the second building of the Choctaw Manufacturing Enterprise here in Carthage Industrial Park. The expansion will be about, the new building will be about 40,000 square foot of manufacturing and office space. So we're doing work for businesses like Ford, Chrysler, Xerox, AT&T, and the golf business. I believe he's making some parts for the golf carts. And with this new building, we'll be expanding into other products as well. So this operation will create another 125 jobs, making a total of around 400 jobs here in Choctaw Manufacturing Enterprise.
The tribe presently employs over 4,500 people here in Mississippi. This is Carl Butler reporting from the Leake County Industrial Park for WHTV.
Thank you, Carl. So good to have you on Heartbeat Alaska, and we look forward to your next report. Let's travel now to Bethel, Alaska, where recently they held a Mink Festival.
Hereford Parkers made from Kuskokwim mink.
You can find them in the finest shops in Paris or in Bethel, Alaska. Every year, an annual Mink Festival is held here to bring awareness to the World Fur Market, as well as to recognize the unique cultural heritage in the Yukon-Kuskokwim area. Mink is generally considered a luxury fur. However, natives of the North have utilized animal fur as a necessity for clothing, protection from the bitter cold, a tradition from a time long ago when there was nothing else to use.
We have here a tiny participant, Margaret, the chick, and she's only 1 year old. And she's from Bethel. She's wearing a rabbit fur parka, and it's made by Rosebill, her auntie of Tuxuk Bay. And it's made out of rabbit fur, beaded calfskin with beaver trim. The ruff is made of wolf and wolverine. Very nice. Thank you, Margaret.
Though animal rights groups shudder at the thought Alaska Natives could not survive the harsh northern weather without protection from the fur of animals. Over the centuries, necessity has brought with it variety and beauty in the form of the native parkie.
Our next participant is Peter Anvil, and he's from Bethel. The parka he's wearing is made by her mother, Anna Anvil of Bethel. It's made of raccoon with wolf, wolverine, and mouton ruff. It has calfskin borders by Elina Ayagalre. It has mouton trimmings and cuff.
My mink coat is so warm that it's going to work out very well in our 100 below chill factor out here. That's the beauty of fur, because fur is the warmest material that you can get. That's why the natives have survived for years. It's because fur is here and we should utilize it.
When flowers fade away, they'll bloom again someday. Will you love me when the rosebuds open wide? Or is your kiss to be only a memory? I need you so don't let your sweet love die. Don't let your sweet love die like flowers in the fall. Without your life would seem like death to me. I've grown so used to you, I can't believe we're through. Don't say goodbye, don't let your sweet love die. Don't say goodbye, don't let your sweet love die.
Santa Pets are coming, Santa Pets are coming, Santa Pets are coming, Santa Pets are coming to your town. Watch out, look around, 'cause we're coming, storming to town. We come.
New Coca-Cola Santa Packs, the only real holiday refreshment. Look for this display at your store.
Holiday refreshments like we bring. A proper Santa pack, it's always a real thing. Santa Pets are coming, always Coca-Cola.
You guys stop that now or I'm gonna knock your heads together.
Joanna, let me deal with this. Luke, I want a word with you. Running Bear, go home. Grandson, you can't be practicing this unnecessary violence. You can't be hurting somebody just for the sake of hurting them. You must let your heart guide you.
What do you mean, Grandfather?
The way of the warrior is to protect. It's not to practice unnecessary violence. This violence could hurt the ones that you love later on in life. You must learn this now, while you're young, while you still have a chance. The warrior's path is a spiritual path, and when you're on that path, you must learn to protect those you love, your family, and all of society. That is the path I'm talking about. Let your heart guide you.
I'll start here now. It's cool.
Go, man! Go, man!
Grandson, the way of the warrior is a spiritual path.
Oh, I see him.
To follow this path, you must live in balance with all things.
Oh, I see him.
To be in balance, you must live in harmony with all people.
Oh, I see him.
Violence pulls you off this path.
Oh, I see him.
Thank you so much for joining me for another Heartbeat Alaska. Next week here in Alaska, it will be Christmas Eve. You'll be watching our Heartbeat Alaska Christmas special. It's only a half-hour long this year. If I did an hour-long show, I would have to do that plus another heartbeat, which would be too much work. But still, we're so pleased to bring the annual Christmas special to you, and that will be the regular time here in Alaska. We're so glad to have you with us. Please continue to watch and call and send me faxes and letters. We appreciate it. And most important, get your camcorder out. Let's make news out of what you feel is important in your village, your community, your city, your school. For Heartbeat Alaska Native News, for Gary Fife and all of us here, we'll see you next week.